Thank you so much for that special prayer. Fred feared his wife, Rhonda, wasn't hearing well. She wasn't hearing what he said. She used to hear very well, but he thought her hearing might be going. Not quite sure how to approach this, he called the family doctor. The doctor called him back and discussed the problem. When discussing the problem, the doctor told him there's a simple, informal test the husband could do. Perform this, he said. Try this. The doctor said, to test her hearing, here's what you do. Stand about 40 feet away from your wife and say something in a regular tone voice. And then slowly move towards her till she actually hears you to see how well her hearing is. So, as he's standing there one day in the den, he's like, well, I'm about 40 feet from her here, and she's cooking dinner. He said, honey, what are we having for dinner? Didn't hear any reply. So he walked into the living room. It's about 20 feet, he figured, or about 30 feet. Walked there and said, what are we having for dinner? Nothing. So he walked to the 20 feet mark. Walked in to their dining room. And he said, Rhonda, what are we having for dinner? Nothing. He finally made it to the edge of the kitchen, about 10 feet from her. And said, sweetie, what are we having for dinner? Nothing. Finally, he walked up to where he was right behind her and said, baby, what are we having for dinner? And Rhonda goes, geez, oh man, Fred, for the 5th time we're having chicken. Figured you'd enjoy that. Because sometimes we think it's someone else, and it's us. Welcome to Labor Day weekend. I thank you all for coming out. I'm going to start off with something, a little bit of be like a teacher. How's that sound? Who likes ants? Not like your relative ant, because I know that's what you're going to say. So ants, the little black things that get on your counter whenever it rains, and then you have to clean them off, or you take out your garbage, and there they are all over the porch. Ants, the ones that build on your sidewalks. The little black things. Who likes them? Who thinks we can get a lesson out of ants today? You do? Okay. I'm gonna give you some interesting facts about ants. They're hardworking in this sense. The scout ant lays a scent in a trail to guide others to food. Did you know that? A scout ant first leaves the nest in search of food. What we look at as wandering around aimlessly, they're actually wandering somewhat randomly until they discover something edible. It is then that they consume some of the food and returns to the nest in a direct line, so the other ants, if you ever see them marching in the army ants, going in a line. Another fact is ants travel in super colonies. They can stretch thousands of miles. Argentine ants, native to South America, now inhabit every continent except Antarctica due to accidental introductions. Now, ants started farming long before humans. Did you know that? Ants began their agricultural adventure about 50 million years ago, before humans thought to raise their own crops. Ants lived alongside the dinosaurs. Ants evolved from 130 million years ago during the early Cretaceous period. some ants enslave other ants. Did you know that? They enslave other ants to work for them. Quite a few ant species take captives from other ant species, forcing them to do chores for their own colony. Ants sometimes herd insects out of other species. This was a surprise to me. Ants will do just about anything for that sugary secretions and sap-sucking insects. They'll do anything to get the sugar. The total biomass of ants equals the biomass of people. Did you know that? And you may be sitting there saying, how can that be? After all, ants are so tiny and we are so much bigger. That said scientists estimate there are at least 1.5 million ants on the planet for every human being. Over 12,000 species of ants known in existence on every continent except Antarctica. Most live in tropical regions. A single acre of the Amazon rainforest may be home to 3.5 million ants. And ants can form symbolic relationship with plants. They use them as shelter and food. So do we. We do the same thing with plants. What I thought of was a hammock in the shade underneath the trees. But soldier ants use their heads to plug holes. The soldier ants have modified heads shaped to match the nest entrance to block any access. That's what keeps them safe, unless we tramp on it. I mean, that really pretty much squashes their whole plan. Ants have superhuman strength. This is one you was probably taught years ago in school. You might have forgot. Ants can carry objects 50 times their own body weight. 50 times their body weight. There's a true story I wanted to share with you today, and this is a lesson from an ant. Brenda was a young woman that wanted to learn to go rock climbing. Although she was scared to death, she went with a group and they faced a tremendous cliff rock, practically perpendicular. In spite of her fear, she put the gear on and she took hold of the rope and she started to face that rock. Well, she got to the ledge where she could take a breather, caught her breath. As she was hanging there, whoever was holding the rope that was on the cliff above her snapped the rope against Brenda's eye and knocked out her contact lens. You know how tiny a contact lens is? How almost impossible to find? Well, here she was on a rock ledge with who knows how many 100 feet below her and hundreds of feet above her. Of course, she looked and looked and looked, hoping that she would be able to find it. But she could not find that contact lens. Here she was, very far from home. Her sight was now blurry. She was very upset by the fact that she wouldn't be anywhere near a place that she would be able to get a new contact lens. And she prayed that the Lord would help her find it. Well, her last hope was perhaps when she got to the top of the cliff, when the girls all was standing up there, she had them and look into her eye to see if maybe the contact lens had maybe skipped over into the side of her eye. When she got to the top, her friend kept examining her eye. There was no contact lens to be found. She sat down with the rest of the party, waiting for them to rest, and as she rested, and came to the face of the cliff. She looked out across the range. As she's looking at the range of mountains and thinking of that Bible verse that says, "Eyes of the Lord run to and fro throughout the whole world." That's a scripture out of 2 Chronicles. 2 Chronicles chapter 16, it starts with verse 9. "For the eyes of the Lord run to and fro throughout the whole earth, to give strong support to those whose heart is blameless toward him." She thought, "Lord, you can see these mountains. You know every single stone and leaf that is on those mountains. You know exactly where my contact lens is. Finally, the time came. It was time to go back down the mountain. They walked the trail, or back down around the rock. They walked down the trail to the bottom. Just as they got there, there was a new party of rock climbers coming along. As one of them started up the face of the rock cliff, she shouted, "Hey, you guys, anybody lose a contact lens?" Well, that would be startling enough, wouldn't it? That girl had found the contact lens, but you know why she saw it? An ant was carrying that contact lens, so that it was moving slowly across the face of the rock. Now, what does that tell you about our God? Is He in charge of the tiniest things? Yes, He is. Yes, He is. Do ants matter to Him? Yes, they do. Of course they do. He made them and He designed them. Brenda told this story to her father, and he was a cartoonist that drew. When she told him this incredible story, he drew a picture of an ant lugging that contact lens. As you see in the comic, with a balloon, a bubble above it, with words in it over his head, with the words, "Lord, I don't know why you want me to carry this thing. I can't eat it, and it's awfully heavy, but if this is what you want me to do, I will do it. I will carry it for you." If God's in charge of the ants, don't you think He cares about you and me? I guess Solomon was right. One could learn a valuable lesson from that ant. Trust in God. We could probably all say this a little more often: "God, I don't know why you want me to carry this load. I see no good in it, and it's awfully heavy. Still, if you want me to, I'll carry it for you." We need to say that more often. There's a lot of things we don't understand at the beginning, how the Lord's working in our lives. We don't understand where He's guiding and directing us, and sometimes we give up before we get to the goal that He wanted us to get to. Now, Labor Day weekend, let's talk a little bit about Adam as I change gears here. If we look back to Adam in the book of Genesis, he enjoyed tending the Garden of Eden until sin changed everything. Now, let's step back now. Whenever God lays that at your doorstep, what He wants you to do, and you don't know why He's laid it at your doorstep, you don't know why you're carrying that load, or you don't know why you're carrying that, what you think is possibly even a burden. Do you make it to where sin steps in and you get veered off your path? Or do you keep carrying that load for the Lord? We sometimes think in this day and age, work is a necessary evil. We think that. Is that what you think today? Work is a necessary evil? Some people just go to work to pay the bills. They do it just to get by. There's businessmen that do crossword puzzles and do what they have to just to get by. I'm talking they're just barely towing the line, just want to get their mandatory work done so they can leave and go home at 5 or whatever time they get off. Not a minute late, not a minute early. Got there on time, leave on time. Another thing we have to ask ourselves, is my job of the enemy? Bless you. Yes, sometimes our jobs are of the enemy. And sometimes we need to evaluate our jobs and see where the Lord's trying to direct us also. Sometimes the Lord's directing us away from that job and found another job for us. One that's not as stressful and better on our bodies. Yes, some jobs are. And also, you can put that job before the Lord and Savior, as we've talked about before, and it can become your God and rule your life. Sometimes that's where the jobs go. How many of you had chores when you were growing up as a kid? Everyone, right? You had to do things. Have you noticed that kids today won't do one chore? And if they do, even if it's just separate the laundry or put the dishes in the dishwasher, rinse the dishes, pick up their own clothes, make their bed, absolutely nothing but fuss and complaints. That's the way this world is today. That is the way, kids do no chores. And whenever you tell them to do chores, they give you a whole list of names. A whole list of names that start here and go clean to the floor of kids that do nothing at home. Absolutely nothing. And we as parents say what? We're not talking about them kids. We don't live with those kids. We live with you. And yes, I'm pointing at you. And another thing they expect, Brad, can you back me up on this? They expect mom and dad to give them money at the drop of a hat, right? Well, still to this day, I have not found that money tree that I thought my parents had in the backyard. And it's not there.
They buried it.
They might have buried it to grow more money. I want to share this with you. This is how my week went last week, and I had no idea it was going to go this direction. We was coming home, and as we're on our way home, I'm driving. I had to stop off at a pizza place to see about Christ stock stuff, since I'm on the board. I walked in, and I'm talking about that, and the owner of the shop is running around, like crazy. He's the only one there. He was short 3 people that day. And I'm standing there at his counter, and I'm trying to talk to him about Christ stock, and I said, boy, are you busy? He's answering phones. He's trying to cook the food. He's trying to do this, folding boxes or whatever else he had to do. And he's trying to keep everything in order, and it's just him. I said, is everything all right? He goes, I'm short. He said, it's just me. And I said, I said, okay. I said, I got to get going. And I walked out, and I said, sorry for bothering you. And as I walked out those doors, do you ever had the Lord lay something on you like right now? I walked out, got in the car, and said to Jen, I said, we need to help this man. I don't know what we can do. I said, I'm guessing maybe you can answer phones. He can find something for Cypress to do. I've never made pizzas. I don't make strombolis. I don't know how he does his hoagies. I said, but we need to help this man. She goes, and this shows how good of a wife. I'm bragging a little bit here. Most wives would have said, you can do that. We're going home. She said, okay. She said, but can we go home and change first? I said, yeah. I said, thank you very much for supporting this. So I took them home, and I knew Cypress had school the next day, and it was a busy night. And I was like, well, I'm going to go see what all he needs help with. I said, I'm going to go down first. So I just changed the clothes I had on, and I went back up. And I walked through those doors. I walked up to his counter, and I said, what can I do to help you tonight? And he said, yeah. I said, no. I said, you need help. I said, you're the only one here. I said, there's surely something I can do. I might not be able to make your pizzas. I said, but this is what we're supposed to do. When we see a brother in need, we're supposed to go help them. He said, you're serious, as he's smiling and laughing because he thinks I'm like, yeah. And he goes, you're serious? I said, yeah. He goes, come behind the counter. He goes, I definitely got a job for you. So I'm folding pizza boxes that night, cases of them. Because that's something he needed done. He had to have something to put it in. He didn't have time to train me because he's the only one there. And it was just an amazing experience. I'm taping menus on the outside of the boxes, and that was my evening. That was my evening, just spending the time there in a room folding boxes to help some other gentleman out that I just know in passing to say hello. He's always been nice to me, but it's just, something that people normally don't do in this day and age. And do you know what I got at the end of the night? Do you know how much he paid me? Absolutely nothing. A shake of a hand, and he said, "Thank you for being there." And as I was folding those boxes, the Lord showed up. A girl came through the back door to help. She worked there, but I don't think it was her night to be there. And I got a lot of compliments and telling me if I need a job, I have one. And I said, no. I said, "I'm just here to help. I seen you was short-handed and I'm here." I said, "And I don't expect anything." But I left that night with a different point of view. And then, sometimes the Lord starts at our heart, and then we're able to use our hands to help. That's the whole point of heart-working hands. This is the message that the Lord laid upon my heart for all of us today. And then it happened again. This time it wasn't a pizza place. This time it was just a neighbor. And I had some boxes in the kitchen, and I set them on the back porch, and then I brought them in so they didn't get damp because I wanted to burn them. I was waiting for the neighbor to burn because we don't burn. He had a pile of brush there. So I went over, said, "Well, when are you going to fire that up?" He goes, "You can fire it up today if you want." I said, "Good. That'll get them out of my way." So I took them over and lit them up. Well, here he had a pile of brush out back of trees that he needed carried in. He said, "You don't have to carry anything." He goes, "This is my job." He said, "I don't want you to get your clothes dirty." I said, No. I said, "You need help." They were branches from a tree that he had cut down. So we drug all them over, drug the little pieces over, stacked up the wood that he was keeping, and we went over. I thought we was done. I was standing there talking to him in the shade, looked back, there's a whole nother pile of brush, just like it appeared. So I spent that up, back and forth and everything. But that's how we can reach people. That was a question my daughter had last week after reaching the lost. How are you reaching the lost? And the Lord shows up. Because she don't see everything that I do. And I normally don't brag about it or say anything that I do because she's normally at school whenever I'm doing it. And that's not what we're meant to do. And sometimes we feel we have to help out family. But sometimes the Lord directs us in another way because He knows those family members that love and care about us understand when the Lord directs us in another way. Sometimes when you're doing the Lord's work, sometimes people don't understand why you're doing it the way you're doing it whenever you could be helping them. Sometimes the Lord shows up and He directs you in another area of life where you need to be helping a lost member or someone out there, or sometimes you need to have someone with you on a visitation. Especially in this day and age of the world we live in. Now whenever I go on a visitation, most of the time I try to make sure I have someone else with me, whether it be my wife or my daughter, because you never know what you're going to run into. And I learned that from the Billy Graham ministry. That's how he started his ministry. He said, "I will not do a visitation, I will not do a counseling session without having someone else in the room," and how successful was his ministry. In this day and age, you got to have someone with you. And that's the way I was led to do visitations over in Butler. And whenever I did them over there, we always had someone with us. We did it as a duel, not just as one person. The hospital visits are a little bit different. You can do them solo. But it's always sometimes a good chance that you should have someone there with you. But these things that I did this week that the Lord laid upon my heart, I did not expect to be doing. I didn't expect to be carrying brush. I didn't even really, folding pizza boxes just comes naturally, but I can't fold them as fast as the Domino's guy. That guy on that commercial is crazy. As fast as he can fold. They expect, the kids of this world and the new generation coming up expect things to be given to them for doing nothing. This American work system is not the Christian way. And I'm guessing that's why he didn't have him and 3 workers there that night, because it's hard to keep people. I know this from being a manager in my past. Kids would get a paycheck. They're good. But in 2 weeks, after all their money's gone, they're, pardon me, you mind if I come back to work? I'm out of money. Did you ever hear an idle mind is the devil's playground? It's true. If you are working hard in the things the Lord wants you to do, you do not have time to get in trouble if you're a youth or an adult. You don't have time to gossip. You don't have time to veer off your path or let the enemy take advantage of a situation. Yes, he's going to creep in any way he can to distract you from what you're doing. This Labor Day weekend that we're celebrating, Labor Day being tomorrow, Monday, Labor Day is a strange holiday, if you can agree with me. While we call it Labor Day, but try to do as little work as possible, right? Most people have the day off. And nobody's really come up to me and said, "Hey, happy Labor Day. How are you doing today? Hope you're having a happy Labor Day weekend." You hear it a little bit whenever you're leaving the grocery store or something, but I really didn't even hear that last night. Our family, now you might find this hard to believe, our family did not get any Labor Day cards in the mail. Did any of you? Happy Labor Day, God bless yous. We didn't get any. We did not go all out and put up a tree up or anything or give out Labor Day gifts. How would you have felt this morning if you'd walked in, Brad, and I'd have said, "Here, Brad, happy Labor Day. Here's a gift for you. Unwrap that."
What do you need put together?
Okay, now the florists and greeting card manufacturers haven't found a way to capitalize on it yet. Give them time. It's a bad weekend for church because everyone wants to travel. I don't have anything against that. They want to go camping, and a lot of them go to church while they're at camp. But another thing, they want to get that last-minute vacation in. Labor Day is different things to different people. To the factory or office worker, it may just be a day off. For policemen, firemen, EMTs who deal with extra traffic, alcoholism, DUI crashes, it's a downright rough weekend for them. Very rough weekend for them. To farmers and ranchers, it's just another day to feed the cattle and work the fields. For preachers, it's an opportunity for us to talk about work. Work is a very important part of God's will for people. How about where in your lives do we need to work on today? On this Labor Day, is the Lord pointing out any of these areas that maybe you need to work on in your life? We're on the road to revival right now. We're on the road to revival. And as I said, this week I would announce another person who's going to be here. This was a request from one of our congregation and a very, very popular man in our area. We will have Randy Quinn here on Monday, the 30th, to do a full live concert for us. And he was a very favorite of my grandmother, Lucy. And I know, Betty, you also like him too. You requested that, the Lord worked it out, and that was a date he was available, and he will be here on the 30th, and he's very excited about coming and meeting all of you. But as I said, how about where in your lives today do you need to work on for Labor Day? Where is your heart this morning? Are you working for the Lord or are you working against the Lord? Do you see yourself as Holy Spirit driven or driven by a worldly force? No one likes to admit when they're working against the Lord. Some do not even realize they are. But if you are speaking negatively inside or outside the church, and that means at work, anywhere. If you're speaking outside the church walls, that is not building up Christ's kingdom. You're actually tearing it down piece by piece. What has been built up over the years is being broke apart piece by piece. If you're not working with the Lord, you're working against Him. We need to watch our tongues. We need to watch what we say. If you have something against someone inside the church or outside the church, a friend, family member, or someone in your life, if you have something that's going on, don't go to someone else with that trouble. Go directly to the source. Go to them. That's the only way you'll be able to work it out together. I mean, we are all adults here. And the youth, same thing. If you're in school, you hear something, it's best not to spread it. Because eventually it comes back to you, and sometimes the source may end up being you even though it wasn't you. Sometimes we need to move. Sometimes we need to move out of our comfort zone. Sometimes we need to move from where we're sitting or where we're standing. Gossip is a big destroyer of friends. There is so many friendship, marriages, and everything ruined by gossip and people saying things. Gossip is a destroyer of friendships between neighbors. Gossip is another thing that destroys families and your coworkers. Sad but true. So sad but true. Did you ever know one wrong thing said about someone in a church, workplace, wherever you are, or something you said about the church could send someone astray forever? One thing. That's it. One thing. One negative thing. Gone. Not coming back. Not sitting beside you. Cause them to turn their back on God for good. SBT. Sad but true. If you're talking to someone who can do nothing about the situation you're talking about or speaking of, or about someone else who can do nothing to help you, or talking to someone else about another person you have a problem with, that is gossip. It's a big destroyer of churches today and years ago. This is not new. And another thing, we have to get out of our comfort zone. If you have something against the pastor, minister, missionary that's speaking, go to him or her and make sure things are clear on both ends. Sometimes we hear things wrong or miss something because we are paying attention to something else and not focus on the message being preached in front of us. Gossip is a sly and sneaky sin that destroys unity of church. And it's not just church. It's all over this world. Gossip is the first thing to be tweeted. Gossip is the first thing. If you hear something bad about someone, that goes a lot further than something that's a blessing. Gossip points to self-importance. Ministry and service point to the importance of others. There is never a time when gossip helps or builds up anyone. There has never been anybody say, boy, that juicy piece of gossip really helped me. Sounds funny, sounds stupid, but no one's ever said it. It actually hurts people. That saying that sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me, that's a lie. And it's proving in this day and age, in this world, because of one thing. Words are hurting everybody everywhere. Even things that aren't offensive are offensive now. There's people offended by colors. And I'm not colors of people, just colors of things. Did you ever think that would happen? No. Once gossip is out about somebody, it is hard to correct if it's false. And most of the time, it is false. Gossip not only hurts the reputation of the subject, but of those who pass it on as well. If someone gossips about someone to you, they'd likely gossip about you to someone else. Gossip is a very evil and destructive force within the church in this world. It's everywhere. Churches should have an environment of trust that does not allow gossip. A zero tolerance, just like bullying. Every church covenant should address gossip. There was 9 ways gossip destroys a church by Chuck Lawless, an evangelist, put this out. The first one is it's evil. The second is it's idolatrous. Third, it's self-centered. 4, it divides. It's divisive. It never brings people together. But I will say this, at the beginning of it, it brings you and that person together because it's gossip and it's juicy. Do you ever get a piece of gossip said to you, and as soon as it's said, you have that sick feeling in your stomach and you're like, oh my, I wish I didn't even hear that. It's often deceptive. It harms reputation. It destroys trust. It indicates hypocrisy in the church. It risks God's judgment. Let's see what Paul has to say about worrying about petty things, because that's what this is. It's petty things. Gossip is normally petty things. It's stupid things that stray people from the Lord, stray people from different people at work. It strays people at school from hanging out with that person. When was the last time you heard a juicy bit of gossip and it helped the situation? As I get ready to close, we'll be in Colossians. Chapter 3, verses 1 through 17. God bless you. Let's see what Paul has to say about these frivolous things, these petty things here on earth. Do I have another amen? Colossians chapter 3, verses 1 through 17. If then you are raised with Christ, seek those things which are above, where Christ is sitting at the right hand of God. Set your mind on things above, not the things of this earth. For you died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is our life, appears, then you also will appear with him in glory. Therefore put to death your members which are on the earth: fornication, uncleanliness, passion, evil desires, and covetousness, which is idolatry. Because of these things, the wrath of God is coming upon the sons of disobedience, in which you yourselves once walked when you lived in them. But now you yourselves are to put off all things: anger, wrath, malice, blasphemy, filthy language out of your mouth. Do not lie to one another. Excuse me. Since you have put off the old man with his deeds, and have put on the new man who is renewed in knowledge, according to the image of him who created him, where there is neither Greek nor Jew, circumcised nor uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave, nor free, but Christ is all in all. Therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved, put on tender mercies, kindness, humility, meekness, long-suffering, bearing with one another, and forgiving one another if anyone has a complaint against another, even as Christ forgave you, you also must do. But above all these things, put on love, which is the blood of perfection. And let the peace of God rule in your hearts, to which also you were called in one body, and be thankful. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, in all wisdom, teaching and admonishing one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing with grace in your hearts. And whatever you do in the word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. So what's he saying here? What's Paul saying here? Basically, Paul doesn't want Christians to worry about the petty things going on down here on earth. The petty things going down here on earth. Just stay focused on Jesus and all will be well. That means no sex outside of marriage. Don't do impure, lustful things. Do not desire evil things. And definitely don't be greedy. It's a tall order, especially in the world we live in. Back when the Colossians and Gentiles were there, they did all this bad stuff. But now that they're believers, things are different. They shouldn't be angry or cruel or mean or gossipy. They also shouldn't lie. Well, unless a woman comes up and says, "Does this toga make me look fat?" But Christians basically have a whole new wardrobe. The past is behind them. They've moved on. They are connected with God now. The ugly part of them, the life of sin, is now behind them. They're walking hand in hand with the Lord. The awesome part is that this means that everyone is equal in God's eyes. He doesn't see a difference between Greeks or Jews or foreigners or slaves or free people. Jesus is okay with everyone. I'm going to say something now. I'm going to say something that is not said in church a lot. At least not up or preached enough, I should say. I'm going to say the F word. Now right here, whenever I say I'm going to say the F word, worldly minds go this way, and the minds of the church go this way, and they think, well, if he says that, he won't be preaching next Sunday. He won't be preaching here next Sunday if he says the F word in church. We're not standing for that. You got to hear the whole story. This is a word that's not used in church enough because it means you have to do something. It means you have to get out of your comfort zone. This F word I'm talking about starts with F and ends in E. It's a compound word. It takes a little bit of effort on your part and my part. The word is forgive. When's the last time you was in church and someone come up and said, hey, I know I said some things about you, or I said something that I probably shouldn't have. Could I have your forgiveness? Or, will you forgive me for what I said? When's the last time you heard the word forgive inside a church other than being mentioned by me? It's been a while, huh? The word forgive is not used regularly in church. And who thinks it should be? Every hand should go up. But really what Paul's saying is, just do good stuff. Be compassionate, kind, humble, meek, and patient. Forgive other people. There it is. Forgive. The F word. You would think it was a bad word to say it in church. But it's not. It's something we're directed and guided to do, to forgive other people. Oh yeah, and we can't forget love. Don't forget L-O-V-E. But verse 13 says, forgive one another in what we just read in Colossians. That's what it says. Bottom line, according to Paul, let Jesus be a part of your life. And you will be happy. Things will be great. And be thankful for everything in your life. Paul is quite the self-help person, isn't he? This message today is not just for the past of Simpson, it's for the future of Simpson. We're going to have new people coming into our doors that have never even stepped foot inside Simpson Bible Church. We want to welcome them open arms. We want to welcome them with an open handshake. We want to tell them, you're welcome here. You're welcome to come here. We would love to have you as part of the church family. We're not just a club. We're a church family that welcomes all. Not just some people. We welcome all people. There's a reason why the Lord did these 5 days. It's for renew and awakening. We all need it. Even myself. This is kind of like a wake-up call to get you where you need to be with the Lord. And if He's tugging at your heartstrings this morning and you need to renew your faith with Him today, just come forward and I will pray with you. I would be honored to pray with you. I would love to pray with you. Please stand up as we close in prayer.